I have to talk to you about what is now referred to as the hoax papers. And to give the audience some background, you moved into the mainstream in 2018 with these hoax papers, which is also called the Grievance Studies Affair, which means that you and two other scholars, Helen Pluckrose and Peter Boghossian, wrote 20 fake academic papers over the course of a year in fields like gender studies, arguing for completely parodical conclusions, and submitted them to various publications to see if they get published. One example of one of these papers, it was called The Conceptual Penis as a Social Construct, which argued that the penis should be seen not as an anatomical organ, but as a social construct isomorphic to performative toxic masculinity. That was accepted for publication. Another one of these papers simply appropriated parts of Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf with fashionable feminist language, and that was also accepted for publication. Now, James, forgive the term, but I think this is just boss-level trolling. I love it. Tell me, how did you and your fellow scholars come up with this elaborate academic heist?
Ultimately, it was Peter's idea. So we have to give Peter the credit for coming up with the idea to do it. But the long and short of what was going on is that we had stumbled our way into the arguments that were happening online and in philosophical and even professional circles in academia around gender studies in particular, but some of feminist theory. Sometimes the race issue would get mixed in, what we were vaguely aware of a term called intersectionality at the time. And we tried to criticize this, at which point we were replied to first by saying that we were white men, Peter and I, so that therefore we have no ground upon which to criticize this. We can't understand, which we thought was baffling. And then next, as we kind of continued forward anyway, some slightly more thoughtful people will say, well, you don't have a degree in it. So lacking a degree, you don't understand the academic nuance sufficiently to be able to make fun of it or criticize it. And so we thought, well, we're not going to go get a degree in it. And some of the things that they were publishing in their academic journals, which we were kind of tracking by that point in 2016 in particular, indicated that they might be ripe for an academic hoax. And we thought, well, we can kind of kill two birds with one stone. If we get an academic hoax published, or maybe more than one, what we would end up doing is, on the one hand, showing that there's a problem with the gatekeeping, the peer review system that's allowing these papers to come in. And then secondly, we would also show that we must know the field well enough to fool genuine professionals. In fact, it's better than getting a degree, because when getting a degree is, in a sense, the start of your publishing career. So if we can just go ahead and publish, then we must know the field and be allowed to criticize it according to the rules of the game that were stated. But of course, we were not allowed to criticize it anyway, and we went back to being white men immediately after proving that we did know the field, and that we also had bad motivation. So that was the actual defense they gave for this. That was, we don't know what we're talking about because we have bad motivations. So that was the area, that's what the milieu that we were working in. I particularly was motivated by a paper claiming that the science of glaciology, studying glaciers, has to be made feminist, or else it's a sexist science, and therefore, something terrible, I'm sure. And so they were advocating that in addition to studying actual glaciers, that glacier scientists should also be studying feminist art projects about glaciers, so that, I'm not joking, that's in the paper, and so that the science would be more inclusive and not so sexist. And that's the only way we have any hope of preventing climate change.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, what radicalized me, it turns out to be that paper radicalized me.